Hello there, you're listening to the Eiffel Tower podcast. My name is Oliver G. I've been in confinement in my Montmartre apartment for over 4 weeks, and I'm doing everything I can to stop myself from going crazy. The latest has been a new game that I call How High Can I Drop My Wedding Ring and Still Land It on My Finger. Record is about 10 centimeters, but I'm not bored. No, I'm not bored. Don't worry about me. No, rather the opposite. I've been working hard. I've been making a lot of extra stuff, including calls to some friends of the show. So what you're going to hear today is 5 different stories, 6 if you include my own, from people who've been on this podcast many times before and who all live in interesting parts of Paris. And I figured I'd call them all up using Zoom and have a little virtual chat about what some of the most famous landmarks in Paris are looking like, how people are dealing with the lockdown. And you're going to hear from names like author John Baxter, tour guide Boris from Paris in person, Jay Swanson, the YouTube megastar, content creator and Instagram expert Veronique from French Girl in Seattle Takes France, and House Hunters International star Adrian Leeds. So you're going to hear from them in just a random order, really, telling their stories. But just to start off with my story is I'm in Montmartre. I've sort of mentioned it before, but it's typically pretty dead. We can go out for exercise if it's before 10 in the morning or after 7 at night. And that's typically, if I go out for exercise maybe once every 2 days, I go out in the evening. The later the better, if I want it to be empty or if I want it to be light, directly after 7, because the sun is still up at that point. I'm pretty fortunate because I live right near Pigalle and Montmartre. I can kind of go either way within my 1 kilometer radius. I realize there's probably some Americans listening who don't know what a kilometer is. So let's just have a look here. Kilometer in miles. I also don't know. It's 0.6 miles. So there you go. Not very far at all. But I'm fortunate that I can get to, for example, the Sacré-Cœur, which I love to walk by. Totally empty. What happens is at a sunset up there, usually those steps out the front would have 1 million people on them, but now you only see people doing push-ups or running past it, a handful of people, and often kind of a number of police who are looking out for people who aren't doing exercise. I can also go into Pigalle, Moulin Rouge, those kind of places I can go past, and it's quiet and kind of strange. So that's my story, but let's hear from some of the other people who have got, stories from their own corners of Paris. And all the info, all the links, all that kind of stuff will be shared in the show notes if you want to find it. So if you want to find more about what anyone's talking about, that's where to find it. Otherwise, I'll tune in at the end and give you guys a little rundown of what's coming up. And thanks to all who joined in the pub quiz every Saturday. We're breaking records here. More viewers every time, and that's one of my favorite parts of the week. If you don't know what I'm talking about, YouTube, 8 p.m. Paris time, every Saturday, me and my wife Lena do a Paris trivia night. But enough about that for now. Let's get into today's episode, and we'll start with a little jingle. Alright guys, this is already a bit of a longer episode because I've got so many guests, so you won't hear from me very much in between other than to introduce the guests. And we will start off with Vero from French Girl in Seattle Takes France. Hello Vero, can you read me?
Bonjour Oliver, I can read you.
Oh my god, I thought we were going to do this in French for a second. I was reaching for the end meeting button already.
No, I know you've been studying French. You speak very good French. Come on.
Oh, thank you very much. How are you, though? How are you doing?
I'm okay. I live under the Parisian rooftops with beautiful views of said rooftops. So, life could be worse. It's very small, but it's very bright. 2 windows. I count myself lucky.
You sound very positive.
I try to be. What other option is there?
Well, let's not even get into the other option.
That's right. The other option is not an option.
No, I like your mindset, and I share it actually. So I hope everybody else does too. But let's talk a little bit about your corner. No, in fact, before that, I just want to say thanks for your Apéro with Vero Instagram lives, because I watched almost the whole one yesterday, and I I was captivated.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, you really
You
know your stuff.
enjoyed the road trip down that iconic French road
Yes.
between
You know what
Paris and southern France.
I really like, I did really enjoy that, and I learned a lot. But I also really liked the when you did the song lyrics, because I'm a big song lyrics guy. And so
Uh-huh.
when you were going through the translating, I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, that's cool. I like that.
Well, I thought it'd be a fun way to bring everything together, being a tour guide, being a French language instructor, and loving to talk about France. So you
Yes.
bring it all together through music. So you translate the lyrics, you
Yep.
tell the story, and you show pictures and you travel. And people seem to
Brilliant.
be responding really well to that.
Do we feel that Charles Trenet was a bit lame using the same rhyme set like 10 times?
Charles Trenet and lame can never be in the same sentence, Oliver, if you want to keep talking to me.
Okay, and I do, and I want people to check you out on Instagram as well. French girl in Seattle.
Always the same name, French girl in Seattle.
Cool, and you're a friend of
Thank
the
you.
show, as with everyone I'm talking to right now. So let's do what friends do and talk about Paris and daily life. Tell me,
Yeah.
you're a bit more in the suburbs than everyone else I'm talking to.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm in the very close suburbs. It's known as La Petite Couronne, the small crown that's around Paris. So what this means is I live in towns that are so close to Paris you can literally hop across the périphérique and be in Paris. So I
and
can walk from where I live to Place de la Nation and to the
mm,
eastern section of Paris. I can be in Paris in 10 minutes if I walk.
cool. And anyone who's thinking, what's a périphérique? What
The
would you say to them?
Beltway, the Beltway.
Right, so the big
Yeah.
highway, but you don't walk through that like a
No,
you
there's
don't.
a bridge. You
Okay,
can go
good.
above. Yes, yeah. No, I don't do that. Not suicidal quite
Yeah.
yet.
But is there a lot of bridges for pedestrians around there? I know there
Yeah,
are a
you
lot.
you can cross the périphérique in several sections around Paris. Sure, you can.
Yeah. I once walked from the southern point of Paris to the northern point, and
I remember when you did that.
it started with a bridge.
Yes, but it's a very compact city if you think about it.
True. So let's
If
talk
you,
about it.
yeah.
What's it like out on the Petite Couronne?
Well, it's nice. Right now, of course, it's very quiet, but it was very quiet also before this started. It's a lovely place to live if you want to step away from the craziness that plagues Paris in the summer when it's really hot and really crowded and there are tourists everywhere. The metro is packed. You live in those small towns around Paris in La Petite Couronne, and you feel at night when you come home, you hop off the metro because the metro comes here. I live right off of line 1, the one that crosses Paris from west to east.
Hmm.
And so you hop off the metro and it's almost like being in a small town or a village. The
Wow.
craziness disappears and you still have everything you need. You have boutiques, you have restaurants. I'm talking of pre-confinement, of course.
Of course.
Of course. And you have, most amazingly, you have the beautiful Bois de Vincennes, the
Oh, I
largest,
love the Bois de Vincennes.
yes, the largest green space in Paris. And you can just go there on the weekends. You could be here for a whole week and not need to go downtown. And,
I've
and that's
got
why I love it here.
I've got a question about that big park. I've got a couple of questions actually.
Yeah.
Firstly, on today's topic, has it been closed off?
Yes, they started closing it off casually, and then about a week ago, they closed off some very specific areas that they knew were drawing a lot of people and families and kids.
Yeah.
There are several lakes in the Bois de Vincennes. They've closed off those sections. They've closed off the cute little areas and the play areas for kids. But it's impossible to close it off completely. That place is twice and a half the size of Central Park.
Sure.
They
Wow,
could
that's
not
incredible.
close it. Yeah, they could not close it off.
I went in there fairly recently before everything got shut down, and I scooted to it at the edge of it where there's the equestrian section where all the
Yes,
horses are.
yes, yes,
And
yes.
then my goal was just to walk to the most central, isolated point I could find. So I kept looking at the map and tried to get to the very center
Uh-huh.
until
You,
until one more step would be leading to another road on the other side. It was
yeah,
pretty
there are
cool.
roads. It's like a maze. There are roads everywhere. There are big pathways and some roads and some structures in the middle of the roads, and you can really get lost in there. In fact, until they stopped us from going in there, I tried different routes almost every day because I hate being bored when I exercise. And I would go and I would see no one. Yeah,
Wow.
even now I could still go this afternoon, and well, Sunday's a little different. People tend to go out more, unfortunately, right now. But
Sure.
if you go in the middle of the week at lunchtime, especially, I can walk for my official hour,
Yep.
and not see a single person.
When you said this petite couronne, is that like a physical thing we can see on the map, or does it just mean near the periphery?
No, it just means right outside the périphérique.
Okay, and
right
does that mean that you got different rules for Paris when it comes to things like lockdown, or is it all?
No, I think the rules are pretty much the same. For example, you know how they restricted joggers from running between the hours of 10 a.m. and 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And then they decided a few days later to change it a little bit because they realized too many people were out at the same time. Well, downtown Paris and Vincennes were actually the ones that didn't change. So we are not allowed as of today still to jog between 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. So we can have the same rules as Paris in certain areas.
Interesting.
For this jogging thing in particular. So you are not supposed to go jogging in Montmartre, between 10 and 7. It's the same for us in Vincennes right now because they know the park is a big draw and they know that people would use this as an excuse to just, stroll and flâner.
Sure. You're not even allowed to go for a stroll. Like everyone says jogging, even if you go out for any kind of exercise, they're going to get you.
Yeah, I pass the police sometimes on the way, and I just walk if I go in the afternoon, and they don't say anything. But if I jog, I'm sure I'd get in trouble if I started running.
Well, we were walking in south of Pigalle, and police stopped us. It was the first or second day after they changed it, and they said, "What are you doing?" I said, "We're just doing exercise," and they said, "No, can't do that. Go home."
But you can still step out during the day for fresh air. So maybe it's a matter of how you're dressed. So I'm thinking if I go out in the middle of the day looking like I'm going for a run, they will probably ask me where I'm headed. But if I'm wearing just regular clothes and walking, they'll just assume I'm just breathing. I'm just getting some fresh air.
I was wearing a wetsuit. What does that mean? I was on the way to the Seine River.
No. Did you have that thing on your head?
Yeah, the snorkel and everything.
The snorkel.
And flippers. I was walking backwards. It wasn't. No wonder they stopped me. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so daily life to wind things up a little bit. Mm-hmm. Are there like if you need to go to get your food and stuff? Is it all still open around there? Or?
Well, not all, but all the food. A lot of the food places. So my traiteur, my deli, my boulanger. My boucher, my primeur, the guy who sells fresh produce, all are open. Mm-hmm. Supermarkets are open. The Monoprix, being essential to Parisians, as you know, is open. Yeah. But everything else is closed. So I don't have a dry cleaner. I don't have my little shoe guy who fixes my shoes. And right now I'm desperate because one of my shoes broke. So we have things that are not open, definitely. But the food things, the essential things are open.
Including tobacconists.
Including tobacconists, which apparently there was a long line outside the one on the street the other day. I was like, I can't believe people are lining up to get their poison there. That was really interesting. And the market, there are very specific rules for market. So you know how at the beginning of April, they basically prohibited all markets for a few days.
Sure.
And then there was this general uproar because people had produce to sell and people wanted fresh produce. So they basically left it to the mayors to decide what they wanted to do in their cities and then to apply for special permission if they wanted to run a market. So in my neighborhood, instead of 2 markets a week, we only have 1 now with very strict rules. And I just walked by the other day and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was like being on another planet. I've never seen anything like it at a market in France.
Why was it like being on another planet?
Because it's the police was there. There was this Disney-like line, where people were lining up about 5 to 6 feet apart. So long line, just kind of curving between fences.
Crazy.
And then the food stalls, only food, were lined, facing each other, so people wouldn't get close to each other. It took forever to even get in the area where you could shop, and they would check your permission thingy. It was very weird. I didn't go to the market. I didn't want to line up that long for food. I went to my primeur, like I said, the place that sells.
Primeur.
Yeah, you see those little guys still. They're disappearing now.
Yeah.
But they're the ones who sell fresh fruit and produce outside. You have them?
Yeah. Can you pronounce for me that you said it in your Instagram live the other day, and I wrote it in my book, the word for people who holiday in August.
So the people who go on vacation in juillet are juilletistes.
That one I can say, juilletiste.
The other one is the tricky one because the month of August in French is août, Out.
Out.
So we
Out.
don't pronounce the AU, right? We say out. We just say out, no A.
Out.
But the problem is when you refer to the people living in August, then you pronounce the A, which is very French, right? Rules and exceptions.
Oh, sure, yeah. So how do you say it?
So if you go in August, you are an Haussien.
Haussien.
So you are, that's right. So you are a juilletiste or you are an Haussien.
Haussien. And one of the reasons I asked, besides just wanting to know, is because I'm doing the audio book for my book at the moment. And I'm going to have to say it at some point, and I don't want to get it wrong.
So it's easy because for once in French life, you actually pronounce almost all the letters.
Haussien. Oh, yes. By the way, do you still want to, there are a few characters, French ladies, where I'm going to need some French lady voices.
Yeah, sure. I'll do French ladies.
Okay. Can you do different?
Yes, I can do a Southern accent.
Can we have a taste of can you just give me a taste of what it would be like if you were, let's say, a woman in a bank getting angry at me?
Okay. So we are in Toulouse in the Southwest, my hometown, right? So I'm even, well, in the bank, she probably wouldn't swear, but I'm going to swear a little bit anyway. So she's really upset with you because you're this arrogant Australian who doesn't follow the rules. You don't follow the rules and you've done something horribly wrong.
Yep.
I have no idea what it is. So I'd say, oh, monsieur, mais je viens de vous l'expliquer. Boudu, c'est pas possible, quoi. Je viens de vous l'expliquer pendant 10 minutes. Vous n'allez pas insister comme ça pendant des heures. Je vous ai dit que c'était non. Non, c'est pas possible. Vous comprenez?
Wow, I'm frightened just hearing it. But for the audio book, you'll have to do the exact same thing, but in English. Is that possible?
English with a French accent?
English with a French accent that's different to your own, so people don't listen to it and just go, hang on, that's Vero.
You mean I want to speak like this? You want me to speak like this and say I don't understand?
You've got the job. You've got the job.
Yay, I got a job. Finally, I got one.
But that's a good point for us both there, Vero, is if you guys at home there want to support people doing creative stuff like Veronique, French Girl in Seattle, and me, we're both on Patreon.
Yes, we are.
And I'll put links to that stuff below. Check her out. And Vera, we'll have to get you on the show again at length in the future so we can talk about all kinds of things if you're game.
I know, it's been a while. I think we did it in season 2?
It was so far back that I'm glad to have you on today, and I'm glad to call you a friend of the show, and I'm hopeful that we can do a full episode real soon.
Absolutely, you got it.
Great. Okay, well, hang in there and we'll talk soon.
Merci, Oliver.
Next up, it's Jay Swanson, YouTube megastar. You can find him on YouTube. Speaking of exploring the city, he and I did that massive walk from the bottom of Paris to the top and live streamed the whole thing. That was a fun time. He knows the city well. He lives out in the 16th. Here's what he had to say. Jay Swanson, do you read me?
I hear you loud and clear yet again. Wow, it's like the audio quality just keeps getting better.
Do you feeling as positive and healthy as you were last time we spoke?
Yeah, actually, I've been getting out for runs. I've been running in the morning now pretty consistently, and it has been life-changing both in the fact that you get it out of the way and get your energy up first thing in the morning, but man, I'm hungry all day.
Have you had problems getting food and stuff?
Well, thankfully, I actually just got a delivery of beer straight to my door, which was fantastic, which is basically liquid bread. So I guess in a way I'm having no troubles with it, but I've only been going to the grocery store once a week. I've been doing it. I shared this on my vlog. I'll share it with your listeners too. This is my tip if you're stuck in Paris. The French in their DNA don't go out on Sundays, really. They stay home with their families. Sunday mornings are traditionally the most dead time in Paris if you want to go out anyways and have nobody on the streets. So I've been going and doing my grocery shopping first thing Sunday mornings because my grocery store happens to be open and have the whole place to myself. It's great.
Now everybody knows, Jay. Never reveal your secrets.
Well, I figured I had to give something for the honor of addressing your listenership.
Let's go back to your running. The topic of the day is how the sort of popular places and their tourist attractions in Paris, what they look like under lockdown. Can you talk me through the Eiffel Tower? I assume you live in the 16th, so you're going to the Trocadero, the big...
That is, actually the Trocadero, and then I've made a few brief forays down to the river, but there are so many more cops down there that I tend to.
Do we need to explain what Trocadero is? Maybe we do.
Well, Trocadero, for those who don't know, if you've seen it's probably the most famous view of the Eiffel Tower because it's one where you're elevated and you can see the entire thing, but you can also kind of stand at its level in a way. So early morning photographs of the Eiffel Tower, you'll see lots of fashion shoots. Mission Impossible was shot there. There's lots of stuff that happens there. So it's probably the most famous viewpoint of the tower, even though it's about probably most of a kilometer away from the base of the tower.
Sure.
And usually it's full of tourists and guys selling mini Eiffel Towers and, doodads and whistle pops and zing zangs and all that kind of stuff.
And not to mention brides and grooms.
Brides and grooms, lots of photos being taken of people getting married. Often protests are taking place there. There's a lot of stuff that happens there.
But what about today?
There's nothing. And if you go in the morning, what's interesting is that I've run past it in the morning and in the evening now. And in the morning, there's nobody there. It's kind of maybe there will be cops there, maybe there won't be. If there aren't, then I feel a little bit more. I personally, I've never been stopped by the cops in all my runs, which is cool.
They can't catch up to you.
Yeah, I'm so fast. But I also try not to. I just don't want to get stopped by them because I don't want to go through the hassle of it, and I don't want them to. I don't know. So I have run through that roundabout a few times because there are no cars, which is great, and taken some photos. But I generally try to avoid it. But in the morning, you maybe see some cops, but it's generally empty, which never happens. I mean, usually in the morning, there's at least photographers doing their thing there. And then in the evening, what I noticed, especially back before they cut down on how much we could go out, but even then, you still see it. It's kind of like it's being treated like a park. Like you see kids on their scooters running around. It's kind of a place where families have gone, where they've got enough space to let their kids run free and not run into anybody else. Hopefully,
sorry to interrupt.
That's fine.
In fact, now I feel bad that I interrupted.
Well, I'll cry about it later, but that's all right. I needed something to act as a catalyst for my emotions.
I wanted to jump over to the Arc de Triomphe as well because I just realized you're quite close to that.
So I've been avoiding that because I figured it would be just overrun with cops. But there are a couple of paths near there that are really nice for running, just because it's not asphalt. And I decided to give that a try. There's a light police presence, but it was fine. And what was crazy was that the roundabout there, which the famous Étoile, Place de l'Étoile, is always just the craziest roundabout. Not
probably
in the world,
the busiest place in Paris, right there.
But very, very busy, and it's insane. If you've ever driven through it, unless you're used to it, it's a harrowing event. And there's like nobody there, And there's just a couple cars going through, but it felt dead, and that was crazy.
I always feel it's best to drive through that with your eyes closed.
Yeah. Just pick a line, just pick a vector and stick to it. Just go. I
don't want to get you in trouble on your exercising outings, but if you can manage to take a picture of these things and send them over, I'll share all of them in a big, rather than me going out to all these places and.
We want to keep you safe and at home, and we are limited to about a kilometer's distance in how far out we're able to go, which is kind of hard to map directly because no roads in this city are straight.
I'm going by the crow flies. How the crow flies.
I like that. And I've been trying to. I actually, unfortunately, my usual route is just a little bit beyond that limit, and I finally I stopped doing it, which I'm trying to be good, but it's funny because you can hear it in my voice. I miss it. I miss my old route, and it's so tempting to go back to it. But instead of doing that, I will stick to closer, safer routes, and I'll get you some photos, Oliver.
I appreciate that, Jay, and thanks for giving me your time today. Maybe I'll tune in with you in an upcoming episode.
I look forward to it. It's always an honor to be on the Eiffel Tower podcast.
Thanks, Jay. Next up, it's Adrian Leeds, who you might recognize from House Hunters International and also a friend of the show. This is what happened when I called her. Adrian, can you hear me?
I can, perfectly.
Great. How are you doing in this unusual time?
Well, actually, I think I'm doing better than I expected.
Oh, yeah? What do you mean?
Well, I'm sort of secretly really enjoying the lockdown.
Oh, yeah?
I find it relaxing, stress-free. I don't have to be anywhere. I'm actually accomplishing more
Wow.
focusing better, exercising more, eating better,
Interesting.
sleeping longer, and thoroughly sort of enjoying just, wearing the same set of clothing.
Yeah. I'm guilty of that.
It's an interesting time, and I'm making the most of it.
What about in typical day-to-day life? You're a very busy woman, aren't you?
Normally, yes. Normally, my agenda doesn't have any space on the page, but at the moment, it's nicely wide open.
Right. And so I can imagine, I mean, in fact, I can't imagine what's your typical day-to-day involving finding homes for people. Has that just taken a mega stop from the get-go kind of thing?
Total standstill.
Yeah, okay.
Total, absolute standstill. We have a few files in process, and they are being delayed. So there's a little bit of dialogue back and forth about them. I'm still doing consultations with people, fortunately, just preparing for the future. But you cannot visit properties. You cannot legally move unless you really have to. And agencies are closed. Notaires are closed.
These sound like fundamental things for moving into a new house.
It's just, let's put it this way. It just ain't happening.
It ain't happening, sister. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you have an optimistic sound to your voice, if nothing else.
Oh, I do actually. In fact, I did a webinar on Friday to talk about money in real estate in the time of coronavirus, which was hosted by WICE, an organization, WICE. And everybody wants to know what's going to happen with prices in Paris, when this is said and done. And your guess is as good as mine and the notaires and everybody else's. But I personally don't think we're going to see any kind of a major drop. If anything, I think they'll be sort of still or stationary for a while until the market picks back up. And then I think they're going to continue to rise. I think this is just a blip. In the real estate market, I think this is a blip.
That's interesting. You know what, Adrian? We should do a longer podcast about that, because that's probably a conversation that we could really get our teeth into.
Yeah, we can sink our teeth into it.
Yeah.
Or it's still guesswork. Because,
you could sink your teeth into it. I don't really know what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, I mean, people ask me this every single day. What do I think? And, I don't see Paris becoming undesirable even after lockdown.
I think you're right.
So I think it's a short-term, as I said, a blip.
A blip. But let's talk about the topic of the day, being that you live in one of my favorite neighborhoods in this whole country.
The Marais.
The Marais, or as I pronounce it, the Marais.
No, you call it the Marais.
The Marais. The Marais. Yeah, potato, right?
It's sort of.
But you live sort of right in the beating heart of it, and I'm really intrigued to hear what it's like down there where you are. Are you getting out? Are you seeing the city?
I take a long walk every single day after lunch. This has become my MO, which I used to never do, and now I'm doing every day. I tend to walk towards the river. Walking down Rue Vieille du Temple or Rue des Archives or Rue de Turenne, and at least head to the river, which is just outside of my 1 kilometer radius.
I'm looking at your 1 kilometer radius.
Don't tell anyone. It's absolutely stunning. The weather has been ridiculously stunning and very uncharacteristic for April, which I'm writing about right now for tomorrow's newsletter. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and you probably hear my street cleaners.
I wondered what that was.
That's the noise.
I thought it was my craziness eventually setting in. I thought that was the sound of
cabin. I'm going to close the window.
Okay, no worries. I'll keep talking in the meantime. No, I won't.
Okay, that's a little bit better. Those are the street cleaners. So we do actually hear a few things every now and then, but otherwise it's quiet.
And
And
are there people out as well, or is it empty?
no, there are a few people out. Yesterday, there were a lot of people out. Today, less so. But for whatever reason, yesterday was a busy day. But it's so amazing to be able to stand in the middle of Rue de Rivoli, Rue Saint-Antoine, and not see a single car in either direction.
Yeah.
And then when you head to the river, there's not a single boat on the river. It's like glass. It's green. It's emerald. It's beautiful. You can almost look down and see the bottom. It's so clear. And
amazing.
It is amazing. And with the sun there, and it's just, there are benches, you can sit on a bench and sit and watch the river, and it's calm and quiet. And I really don't want Paris to go back to the way it was.
Tell me, when you're sitting on those benches, are you not afraid the police might come and get you?
Oh, no, the police don't come and get you. I have been stopped a couple of times.
Yeah.
But I'm very good about having my little attestation.
Right.
And I have heard a few bad stories about how they can be a bit obnoxious about it, but I find that if I joke with them from the beginning, I manage to get away with it. I got stopped by a car pulled up next to me, a police car. And they opened the door and said, Madame, do you have your attestation? And I realized, I forgot to do mine. So I pulled out my phone. I said, oh, no, I forgot. And I quickly did it. And then I showed it to him. All right, here it is. And then he said, Vous êtes Adrienne Lee? And I said, yes, I know. It's a nom d'un homme. It's a name of a man. But That's me. And so I just kind of made light of all of it. And they said, okay, fine, no problem. And I showed him my marketing bag. That's a trick. Just bring some sort of a marketing sack with you so that you can say I'm on my way to the market.
Okay.
Yeah. So
tricks.
Just in case,
Yeah. What about, have you managed to take any pictures of these empty streets that I could share with people?
Oh, I've been taking lots of photos.
Excellent.
Today I missed it though. I tried to take a photo of a young guy who was sitting, he was on the first floor, sitting what was the overhang of a store. So it wasn't really a terrace, but it was obviously his little personal space.
Right.
And he was just sitting on top of the sign of a store.
I love it. Yeah.
Rue de Bretagne.
Except you didn't get a picture.
No, I didn't get a picture. I felt sort of silly, but he was on his computer working away, pretending it was his terrace, and it was really cute.
Living the dream. Living a dream, anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
But you've also, as I've said about all the guests, you're a friend of the show, Adrienne. And I don't want any spoiler alerts, but I understand you've read my book already.
I have. I read it during lockdown.
And what did you think? You can be honest with me.
Oh, I loved your book. And I could really hear your voice. It's definitely your voice. I heard it throughout, and I love the stories. And there were a lot of stories I didn't know, about how you were sick through your entire honeymoon.
Oh, yeah. That wasn't a good one. Okay, I'll take that review. That's great.
No. It's a great read. It's total fun and pleasure. Yeah.
Thanks, Adrienne. Thank you. And everybody should check out Adrienne's Monday newsletter. How do we find that?
And Wednesday and Thursday.
I especially like the Monday, that's all.
Why?
Because it gives me an energetic start to the week.
Okay.
So Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Monday and Wednesday is Parlez Paris or Parlez Nice when I'm in Nice. And Thursday is French Property Insider. So it's it's specifically about property.
Brilliant. And I look forward to having you on the show again to talk property, even if it's speculation. Speculation can be intriguing.
I would love that anytime. Call me up.
Cool. I will do. Thanks.
I'm not going anywhere. I don't know about you.
No plan. The only traveling I'm doing is between living room and bedroom. So
I get that.
Yeah.
That's for the garbage can, right?
Yeah. All right. We'll talk soon, and be sure to send me over some of those pictures so that I can put them together so people can picture what we've been explaining.
I'll do that right now.
Great. Okay, Adrian, hang in there, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you. Bye, Oliver. Bye, everyone.
Next up is author John Baxter, a friend of the show and a familiar voice for any of you who've listened to this show before. In fact, his is the only one that wasn't on Zoom. He doesn't have the app, and I didn't want to make him get it, so I just recorded from the loudspeaker on the telephone. Hello, John. How you doing?
Well, considering I'm locked up like a prisoner, I suppose I'm all right.
Like a prisoner? Is that how it feels over there?
Well, I'm coming up into my second month. You know, this is like 6 weeks of being locked down. It's not exactly what I'm used to. I suppose it could be worse in a way. It's been an education. I realise now that maybe being in jail might not be so bad.
I thought you were going to say being in jail again then.
No, this is my first incarceration.
So I'm calling people around, friends of the show, of which you're of course included, and I'm calling them in their respective, what's the plural of radius? Is it radii?
Radii, yes.
Okay, and you have an intriguing radius because you're, maybe you can tell us a bit about where you live and what's in your radius and what's closed, what's different. Maybe you can paint a picture for us.
Yeah, sure. In fact, I'm walking out of my office into the corridor and out onto our terrace, which is on Rue de l'Odeon, and now stepping out into the open. And yes, here is our terrace with a lot of plants and trees and flowers on it, which my wife Marie-Dominique has taken in hand. And I'm looking out from the 6th floor. Right across the roofs of the 6th arrondissement, there's Notre Dame with the large crane above it where they're working on the repairs. Over down here to the left in the distance, I can see where you are probably. If you wave from your window, I can see Sacré-Cœur on the top of Montmartre, and if I turn in the other direction, there's the Theatre of the Odeon, and on the other side of that is the Luxembourg Gardens. So we, as you say, my radius is not too bad.
And so I can imagine you do have a fantastic... And the people who are mega fans of the Eiffel Tower have been in your apartment when we did that event about, what was that, 2 years ago now?
That's right. Yes, you did the broadcast from here. That was a great success, and of course you've been to parties in our apartment. And I think am I not right in saying that after one of our parties you proposed to your now wife on the way back from the party? So obviously that was a big success. That's
the influence that your parties have on the public, John.
And nice to think that's true.
And that's on your advice, actually. That story of me proposing to Lena is the very first pages of my new book.
Well, there you are. You got to start on a high note.
All downhill from there as well. Let's talk about the Jardin du Luxembourg, where we've also done some videos and stuff before together. Am I right to think that has been closed off for a long time?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Almost from the beginning of the lockdown, they closed all the parks in Paris and particularly the Luxembourg. So the most you can do now is you can jog but around the outside of it, and you can look through the bars at the gardens. But unfortunately, yes, we're not admitted. It's a great loss because people used to come here specifically to visit the Luxembourg. In fact, this is Sunday afternoon. On a normal Sunday afternoon, the streets would be absolutely jammed with people who'd gone into the Luxembourg, usually with their families, to go to maybe there's a concert in the music shell, or maybe the kids just wanted to play in the playground, or they just wanted to hang out. But now, looking down, I think it's fair to say there is not a single person in the street. Just let me look over here. Oh, there's 3 people I can see. That's it. There are total 3 in the whole of Rue de l'Odeon.
Wow. And have you noticed, being close to the park, any unexpected changes? Like, we get a lot of bird song up in Montmartre that I've never noticed before. Have you noticed anything like that?
Not bird song. If anything, there's a lack of human song, because in front of the Odeon there were very often street musicians and sometimes people spilling out of the theatre, and so we'd sometimes hear music in the street, but nothing at all lately. What I have noticed actually is that the front of the theatre area, the forecourt, is so empty that people go up there and play tennis.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
It is, isn't it, extraordinary? You just can't imagine anything like that happening before. But it's as if the city is just been completely deserted. In fact, this is something that didn't strike us immediately. In our building, there are 8 apartments, and all occupied. And the apartments opposite us, again, we always thought of them as being very busy, very occupied. But since the lockdown, in our apartment of eight apartments, in our building of 8 apartments, only 2 are occupied, and all the places opposite, they're almost completely empty. So our assumption is that a lot of people have gone away to their country places. I think that's the case with our building, and I think most of the buildings opposite us have been B&B, and the people, they just can't rent them anymore. So the apartments are empty.
That's interesting, because that's something that Paris has been trying to crack down on anyway. So I wonder if there'll be changes on all that stuff in the future too.
Well, very likely. I think there's going to be huge differences in the pattern of tourism, I'm sure. I really wonder how that's going to go. I assume after this thing has passed, there'll be a huge surge in tourism. There's so many people have just, were ready to come to Paris, and a large number of people that I'm in correspondence with, people for whom I do my literary walks, have said to me, "I'm so sorry we couldn't come, but we'll definitely be there when this is over." And I'm sure from the sales of my books, which have increased, actually, I'm selling far more copies than I ever did. I think a lot of armchair travellers are sitting thinking, wow, I can't wait to get to Paris. So I wouldn't be surprised if B&Bs didn't surge back. Whether the city is going to be happy about that, well, I think a lot of that's going to depend on who will be mayor. And as it is now, as you know, the mayoral election is hanging fire because they couldn't complete the second part of the voting. So Madame Hidalgo, who is kind of anti-B&B, is in charge still, but I wouldn't be surprised if when they do the second stage, maybe somebody like Rashida Dati might come in and she's a little more accommodating to the B&B people. So a lot of things are going to change, I'm sure.
And it will be interesting to watch that happen. And John, I hopefully... hang on, let me re-say that last bit. And in the meantime, people, as you said, should track down any and all of your books. A Year in Paris, my personal favorite, though that might be because you mentioned me in it. Thanks for that.
Well, always a pleasure, of course, and always glad to contribute to your efforts. So long may you continue.
Thank you, John. And as John said there, his literary walks are absolutely fantastic. You should check them out. Send him a message. Maybe plan on booking one in the future. See Paris like you've never seen it before. John, thank you for your time.
Always a pleasure, Oliver.
Next up, it's Boris from Paris in Person. He talks a little bit about his new app, which is called Notre Dame Fiat Lux, L-U-X there. More on that in the show notes, as with everything else. But Boris over in the 7th arrondissement, and you'll recognize him from a couple of past episodes too. Here we go. Hello, Boris. Do you hear me?
Hi, Ollie. Hear you loud and clear. How's everything?
Everything is fine with me. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, being productive, making the most of the quarantine, staying optimistic.
That's good, because I assume I wouldn't want to assume anything, Boris, but I figure that you probably don't have much tour guiding at the moment.
Not really, no. You would assume correctly there. No tour guiding, like zero tours. Yeah,
Right.
they are basically prohibited nowadays. They're made illegal.
Did they did that all happen at once? Like, was it just a mass cancellation for you?
Well, yeah, pretty much like the clampdown was the 16th of March when they became illegal, but you could say that cancellations started like 10 days before that, building up to that date. Yeah.
Was that like really depressing, or was it you kind of had your head around it, or?
Well, it was and it wasn't. I mean, it was if you look at it objectively, because business stopped and it's not likely to start by the end of the year. Like, we're only looking at the possibility of like very slow start around September and a decent start around December. But to me personally, not that much, because I'm using the time to do research and to write, so. But yeah, if you look at the industry as a whole, yeah, it's actually pretty disturbing. Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Boris, but hopefully people listening will give you a little follow, or maybe get your app that we can talk about a bit later.
Oh yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah.
But for now, I want to hear a little bit about your area, because you're fortunate, and I'm glad that you're staying optimistic too, but you're very fortunate to be in a really fascinating part of town. Can you paint a picture of where you live before you tell us what it's like? So
I live in the 7th district. It's very close to the Eiffel Tower. It's right by the Champ de Mars Park, which is like that really large sprawling park that's at the foot of the Eiffel Tower, between the École Militaire, the military academy, and the tower itself. A couple of streets away from it. It's really close to the pedestrian area of Rue Claire, where you and I did an episode a couple of months ago.
And that was more than a couple of months ago, right? That was like
that was like 6-7 months ago, I think. Yeah, maybe even a year. I don't know. Yeah.
And that was the one where we walked. That was when we walked right down Rue Claire, like the really picturesque market street.
Exactly. I live right by that. So. It's an interesting experience. Like, I try not to, in the 7th, being in the 7th right now, I try not to go out too much, respect the quarantine and everything. When I do go out, I do like go for a daily run, of like half an hour or so. And I see like much more people running than ever, so it's been years that I've been living here and been running, in the park. And like usually I would see, I don't know, like 4 or 5 people running at different times of day, like not much more than that. Nowadays, I see like 20, 25 people, wow. Everyone's out and about. It's not really like quarantine-like at all, and you see people not only running, just walking around, walking their dogs, other pets. Just standing on the street chatting. You don't really get the whole quarantine vibe.
Interesting.
You do kind of get it because the stores are closed. You see like barely fit people, so it's kind of strange in that account,
What's it like? I'm literally looking at a map. There's a website that I got up that can draw a ring around 1 kilometer from your actual address that you gave me privately. We don't want everyone just showing up at your doorstep, Boris. But you literally are within. Yeah. You've got the Eiffel Tower within 1 kilometer of your house. Have you
exactly right?
Have you been to it? What's it like right there?
Oh, I've been to it. I go there every day when I do my daily run. I go past it. Well, the park itself is closed, so the park is empty, and that's a pretty strange sight. But all around it, you don't, at the foot of the tower itself, you don't see a lot of people that are usually there selling trinkets, and souvenirs. Yeah. So that's always kind of strange to see. But other than that, a lot of runners. It's like this quarantine brought up the inner fitness in people, so... everyone's running,
I thought at first though, because the when it all started and the marathon was coming up, I thought people were training for that, because you often do see a spike in joggers in Paris when the marathon's coming up. But now I think everyone just wants to get out of the house.
Yeah, I think that too. Yeah, and I think especially when they brought these measures that you cannot go out to do sports between 10 and 7 p.m. like 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. I think they left like these little, brackets of time when people started getting out, so it's even more condensed and there's even more people out. So it's also kind of strange because it's a beautiful weather out. It's sunny. The trees are in bloom. They have new leaves. So really beautiful. You're tempted to go out, but then that you shouldn't. So mixed messages there.
Absolutely. I've got a few more quick questions for you. I notice on the radius, you've also got a sizable chunk of the Seine River and the Pont Alexandre III. What's it like on the riverbanks? Oh, you can't go on the riverbanks, right?
I don't think you can. Yeah, I think well, at least you're not supposed to. They have police patrols and like. The Seine is strangely calm. It doesn't really have a lot of waves because there are no boats, going about. And yeah, the bridge is empty because it doesn't really have all the Asian tourists taking wedding photos on it, which is what you usually see. Like 5 of them at any given time. So I would say like it would be serene, but you still have a lot of traffic around it. So yeah, again, not a lot of quarantine vibe,
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. The other 2 questions I had, I've referred to you as Boris the Brain before on the show and in my private life, to be honest, because you really do research this city very well, and you know everything as far as I can tell. But I wanted to know, drawing comparisons with the history of, sorry to put you on the spot as well, but drawing
no worries.
That's what we did on that Patreon walk that we did. Do you remember?
I remember, of course.
I just pause. I'm like, what's the deal with Napoleon? No, my question is, do you see any parallels in history with what's going on now in Paris?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, you could say that there was a lot of parallels with the outbreak of cholera in the 19th century and like the famous Spanish flu, influenza in the beginning of the 20th. I mean, the most poignant parallel, I would say, would be with the Black Plague that took place in the middle of the 14th century and that ravaged Europe by storm. I think that would be like a more apt comparison because that was really like a European and Asian event. All these other pandemics like happened in a more or less isolated space, but this like pandemic really took most of the known world. The Black Plague, the Black Death, or the Great Plague. So yeah, it's something that is really comparable to today because a lot of wealthy people use the occasion to flee the cities and just go in the countryside, isolate themselves. So they kind of spontaneously did what we were ordered to do now, and then like waited for the whole thing to pass. And then the people who didn't have the means to travel, they would stay in Paris and they would kind of roam around the half-abandoned city, which was even more dramatic back in the day because a lot more people were dying, a lot more people were actually diseased. There wasn't really a system of healthcare established. And the Great Death was actually something that put the idea of the public health system in order, because there was such a strong necessity for it that people started thinking about the city differently. They started dividing the city into sectors, into districts, into like little boroughs, so they would know like where the contagion is the worst, so they would know how to isolate and quarantine the people. So it really had this profound influence on the history, if you might say, not only urban planning in Paris, but also thinking about the city and how people live together and like what's the idea of the community and how you can spread disease through, contact, which is another thing because that's interesting because they didn't really know how disease was spread. They were only speculating, we only found out how the Black Death worked by the late 19th century. And in the 14th, when it was happening, it was all still a mystery, and speculations and yeah.
I think that sounds like an introduction to a full episode we could do if you'd be game talking about.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Okay.
Well, coincidentally, it's also a chapter of my app that we mentioned, Notre Dame Fiat Lux. So one of 7 chapters, and one chapter is entirely dedicated to Black Death and the Great Plague and how it changed the city of Paris, and specifically the area around Notre Dame. How Notre Dame is related to the Great Plague and vice versa. Yeah.
Perfect. So, we'll get into that in the next episode. But just again, how can people buy your app? What's the name of it?
So the name of it is Notre Dame Fiat Lux. You just go to the App Store if you have an iPhone, like in any other iOS device, or you go to Google Play if you have an Android device, which is basically any other phone, other than the iPhone. So you tap that in, you download it. The first chapter is free, and that's like general info about Notre Dame, and then the other chapters are paid content. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to checking that out too. Thank you for joining me today, Boris, and stay safe, and we'll talk soon.
Always a pleasure, Ollie. You did the same. Keep in touch.
Cheers. Well, there you have it. That sums it up for the day. Pretty fun. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Should I do more like it? Or would you prefer longer chats with each of the people? Both? Neither? Let me know. Send in an email, contact@theearfultower.com. Keep sending in those reviews of the podcast, the new book, everything else. A few milestones to note. 5,000 YouTube subscribers. That's pretty cool. 8,000 Instagram followers. And 400 Patreon supporters. All from this week. Well, not all the Patreon supporters are from this week. All those milestones were crossed. The next one, the big one, is 1 million downloads, which we're not very far away from on this very podcast. So help me out, tell your friends, sign up on Patreon and support my work. Patreon.com/theearfultower. If you do it today, become a member, you'll get daily recordings of the audiobook for Paris on Air, my new memoir. And when I say audiobook, I mean audio experience. It's very interactive, and I think you're going to like it. Go and scroll around, sign up. Have a good time. Have a good week. I'll be back with more episodes soon. Merci beaucoup.